Praise the Lord, Alkali's in the kitchen. Praise the Lord, Alkali's in the kitchen. Praise the Lord, Alkali is in the kitchen, and there's no kale here.
Hello and welcome to another Cooking with Alkali. Here's your host, Alkali Bismuth.
Hello everyone and welcome to A Giant Mess.
And tomatoes and peppers and olive oil and... Jesus.
I am attempting to do one that it's actually kind of weird. I only ever cook this once a year for Christmas. This is my mother's secret recipe for pasta sauce turned into one of nature's greatest creations, lasagna. Today, we're not going to talk about the size of ingredients because as you can see by the sheer size of the mess, I am doing a multi-batch cook right now. I'm actually doing 6 times the recipe. So for the sizes of the ingredients, please look at the description below. We're going to just talk about what the ingredients are and how to do this.
Listen close, follow my instructions.
If you take the ingredients to this recipe, the onions, the powders, the spices, and you put that into Prego, you buy a can of sauce and you use these spices to boost it up, you're going to get nearly the same effect. You're going to get an incredibly flavorful sauce. Now what we're doing is a very home-style recipe. My family wasn't big on whole tomatoes. None of us have ever been. So instead of just using San Marzano tomatoes and crushing them down and reducing that, we're using tomato sauce. We're using tomato paste. So we're using the processed materials, but all of that is going to come together into one thick, delicious, homey sauce that just kind of, for me, reminds me of my childhood.
Today's theme is nostalgia.
To start, we are going to start by sweating onions. So for my size recipe, I have 2 large onions. I usually go with a sweet onion for this. Today, because of the bigger batch, I'm actually doing 1 sweet and 1 Spanish onion. Feel free to just use 1 large sweet onion. That's a good way to go. We're going to start off the pot by just giving it a little extra virgin olive oil, just so we can sweat down these onions. It's again, we don't need to do much. We're not trying to brown them. In fact, we don't want to brown them. We don't really want that in there quite yet, because these onions are going to be in there to season the meat.
Vinny, don't put too many onions in the sauce.
And as usual, anytime you're working with onions, you just want to keep them moving slightly. Now, I diced these onions. Try not to mince any of your initial ingredients. Why? Because we're going to have to strain all the meat. The meat we're using today is going to be basically kind of a 3-to-2 ratio ground beef to spicy Italian sausage. So we have our ground beef and spicy Italian sausage already mixed up here in a giant meatball of death. The onions are nearly there. We're almost translucent there. Now, you're going to watch me throw a lot of ingredients into these pots over the next while. The reason for that being is this is a low and slow recipe. This is not a recipe to make in an afternoon. This is barely a recipe to make now at 3:12. We're probably going to be eating tonight at about 10 o'clock. This is a most of the day reduction. We're going to put so much water into this dish. We're going to put so much water into this pot that the rest of the day is just going to be spent stirring and reducing. Stirring and reducing. And what you're going to get out of that is that sauce like you've seen in restaurants, that thick sauce that really sticks to every single noodle in there. And the way you're going to do that is by starting off with way too much water. My onions are ready. This is a trick that I use. A little bit more, a little bit of the extra virgin olive oil right there in the middle. That way, your garlic has a chance to hit without immediately burning. I told you I'm doing a very large recipe. Well, here's the amount of garlic.
Luigi! No, Mario! Too much garlic, Luigi. Too much garlic. No, Mario.
So, the next step is browning your meat, and that's what I'm going to do now while we turn off the camera for a little bit. We're going to get this meat browned. We'll come back right before we drain it. Remember, don't put that grease down your sink. You will regret it immediately. And once we get this all browned, we'll come back for the next step.
That should just about do it. Man alive, there's nothing better than a hamburger grilled to perfection.
While everything's going on the oven, a really good thing to do is knock out your, my favorite part, the ricotta. This is your creamy center to lasagna. That's that cheese that goes into the middle of lasagna that just adds that creaminess that I absolutely adore. I think it's the best part of baked ziti. I think it's the best part of lasagna. My father hates it. This is actually a step you can omit. Anytime you see me using the ricotta, feel free to replace that with a layer of mozzarella if it's not your thing. I recommend the ricotta. I am using a whole milk ricotta. That is a full milk ricotta, freshly ground Parmesan. Some extra virgin olive oil, beaten eggs, oregano, basil, black pepper, salt, garlic powder, and onion powder, fresh grated parsley. That's going to go in there too. Delicious inside to lasagna. And to give you an idea of the consistency, that's what we got. That's what's going into that lasagna. I don't know if it looks appetizing to you, but I know what it is, and I kind of want to drink this. See you in a second. All right, we're back. Now I have cooked the meat all the way through and drained it. I'm assuming if you're watching this, you know why you're draining the meat.
Phrasing.
But in case you don't, this does not belong inside you.
Phrasing.
That is pure fat. In a little while that will solidify to the point where I could throw out the top layer of it. And in about a day or two, it'll solidify all the way so I can actually throw it out. Don't skip draining the meat.
Hey, phrase it!
We have our giant pot of meat right here. To that pot, again, find the actual amounts below because I'm making a very large batch here. You're gonna add all of your tomato sauce and tomato paste, apologies. You want to use like San Marzano tomatoes for any of this. If you can find that, that's wonderful. I'm using literal Costco tomato sauce and tomato paste. Why? It was cheap.
That's why I developed this unique new program for managing your debt. It's called Don't Buy Stuff You Cannot Afford.
You take your sauce and you just dump it in. Doesn't seem that bad. You're gonna take your spatula, you're gonna get as much of that out as you can. And now, for every can you put in, every can, you're gonna add 3/4 cup of hot water. I'm sorry, not 3/4 cup. 3/4 of the way to filling the can. My apologies. You're gonna fill that can 3/4 of the way. You're gonna take your spatula and you're gonna get every last bit of that tomato sauce out.
He hates these cans!
Tomato paste, much thicker, same process, same idea. Get it out of the can. Marvel at how kind of weirdly disgusting that looks. This can, instead of doing 3/4 once, do half twice.
Stay away from the cans!
Let me show you what this looks like right now. Now, yes, because of the amount of meat in here, this looks like a solid sauce, but this is nowhere near complete. We want to reduce this down. We want this to drop down in volume so that it has that hearty, really, really rich, really thick sauce, and that's where we're gonna get this to. But we can't do that without the seasoning, the spices. Now that's one of the reasons we're putting so much water into this, because we want it to cook for a long period of time. We want to give everything time to get to know each other and for all those flavors to come through, because the amount of seasoning in this is intense.
Spicy life. Spicy.
The salt, bit of pepper, the garlic powder, oregano, ground sage, and my mother's secret ingredient, the chili powder. Chili powder into pasta. I don't know what it is. I've made this pasta without it just to try. No, it makes such a difference. Chili powder all the way. Again, the volume will be underneath. So that's to start. We're just gonna throw that right on top. And now, the reason why I'm the one in my family who makes this, because allow me to tell you what my mother told me when putting in the Italian seasoning. Cover the top of the pot. So, I am putting in a ridiculous amount of Italian seasoning, literally covering the top of this pot. Now underneath, I'm going to give you my best approximation to how much that actually is in Italian seasoning. That being said, that's the one you're gonna have to taste for. Italian seasoning bleeds into the flavor fairly quickly. Don't be afraid if halfway through, take a piece of bread, dunk it in there, see the flavor. If you're missing something, it might be that Italian seasoning, throw a little bit more in. As long as you still got another half hour on the stove, it doesn't make that big of a difference. All my ingredients are in. We're gonna get down and dirty and give this a good mix. And now we play the waiting game. Depending on how much you are making, this time will vary, but I am about to reduce this for 3 hours.
I think I'll eat it now.
This sauce, because of the water content, because of how much is in there, freezes perfectly. I have been simmering this sauce for 3 hours. And now, here, I'll bring it to you.
Okay.
This is our final product. Now that is a thick, meaty, homemade, that is a spaghetti sauce. Mostly meat. I've already boiled noodles. Now, did I use homemade noodles? Nope, store-bought. Why? On sale. Love you guys to death. It saved me $2. So, to start, the bottom of your tray, I'm using a very simple tray, a little half sheet. This works out very well for me because, again, I am making these for a bunch of different people. You can do this in a larger tray, please feel free, but all of it is the same. Assembly is obviously very straightforward. Bottom, put a layer of your sauce. On top of that...
I thought you were talking to me at first. What? You're like bottom?
Bottom. Bottom, get over here.
Right.
Second layer of your nudes. Get those in there. Feel free to overlap. Nudes are good, but try to overlap evenly. Now, a nice thick layer.
Yep.
I do not put a ton of layer of noodles. Not big on that. It's carbs, it's noodles. The noodles, they're there, they're good, they add body to this, but they don't add a lot more. So why have 40 layers of nudes when you could have just a few layers of the tastiest shit? All right, there we go. Can you get in there? Can you see that?
I did.
It's just a nice simple layer. And to that, you've probably seen these at your store before. At Costco, they sell them sliced. I think a lot of stores do that. I always get mine from Costco. It's just fresh mozzarella. Sliced fresh mozzarella, and we're gonna take that sliced fresh mozzarella and we're gonna layer it in there. Okay. We are going to make this thing mouse friendly.
Yeah.
This is just a layer of dummy thick mozzarella. And then just one more scoop, just to fill in all those cracks, fill in all those crevices. That's all I'm doing there. I just want to make sure that everything is semi-level. It's not perfect. You don't need to be perfect. Fuck being perfect. Now another layer of our nudes. It's like E621 is already here. Just nudes and cheese.
Yeah.
It's the Circle E621 all over again.
No graters, though.
No graters. Well, I mean, yes, there is a grater. It's over there. I haven't used it yet. And always keep a few skinny ones. It'll happen. They will rip. Keep those for your edges. All right. Second layer. This is the tricky one. Don't put in sauce. You cannot put sauce under this or you will have trouble spreading it because it's time. We've all been waiting for it.
Ooh,
yes.
Ricotta.
The stuff that Zan thought was fucking mashed potatoes. The ricotta cheese.
It looked like it.
How to spread a very viscous substance when the bottom layer is movable. That's why I didn't put down any sauce. I didn't want sauce underneath this because it makes it harder to spread. So, for you tops out there, spank it.
Yeah.
All I'm doing is pushing down with an angle towards the direction that I want it to go. Nothing is moving. This will let me get the ricotta all the way to the edge. Rotate the tray.
Nice.
I'm just, oh, see, I lifted up there and I started lifting up anew. Be careful of that.
Just push and
Just pushing down.
Yep.
Every time you see something start to lift, just gently back away. There's the ricotta. Now, we didn't put the sauce underneath it, we put the sauce on top of it. So, get that. Now this one, be a little bit more careful. You want to make sure to spread it out, because again, this is going to start to melt that cheese. You don't want to have to play with it. Now you're kind of playing beat the clock here. So I put down my layers, I grab that, I shouldn't use the same spatula. Grab my spatula, and just, again, I'm making sure to not actually touch the cheese like I just did there. You saw that once I scraped it down to the cheese melted immediately. It came up with it, so be very careful. Just make sure you have a nice, even layer. Next layer, same as before, just line up your noobs. We're about to put on a layer of cheese. I have shredded some mozzarella cheese. Remember, shred it from a block. Don't use it from a bag. Why? The shredded cheese in a bag has a powder, a coating on it that prevents it from clumping in the bag. You know what else that does? Prevents it from melting the right way. You want the cheese underneath. Why? Because we're going to be putting foil on this. We're going to be putting this into the oven to finish the cooking, and if you leave the cheese on top, it's just going to stick to the foil. Again, without touching the cheese, you're just trying to give a nice motion over the top. You want the cheese to be covered because the foil, while touching the sauce, it'll burn a little bit, it'll crisp a little bit. You'll get some stickage, but not like you would have if the cheese was on top. So again, do not let that cheese come to the top. This is going into a 350-degree oven for 20 minutes. It's already melting. All that cheese is already melting because of the heat of the sauce. This just came off the stovetop. Those noodles just came off the stovetop. Does this need to be heated? No, but we're going to because, again, we want everything to marry together. When it comes out, give it a good 10-minute rest. I told you how much liquid is in here. Let that liquid be reabsorbed. Let that liquid solidify just a little bit. Do not serve this piping hot. You're going to cut into it, and you're going to get liquid all over the place. And my final thing, we're not doing this for reasons. However, Parmesan. There is Parmesan in a few of the ingredients here. If you want to give one final beauty to this dish, right before you're going to take it out, pull out your lasagna, take the foil off it, and shave some fresh Parmesan all over the top. A nice layer, put it under the broiler for just a minute or two. Brown that Parmesan. That is probably the best topping to, in my opinion, my favorite lasagna. Thank you all so much for joining us. I really hope this has inspired you to make what I consider one of the best dishes out there. It's my favorite one to make, even though I only do it once a year, because it is an all-day project. It's worth it. It is worth the time you're putting into it. And again, I said this at the beginning of the show, if you don't have that kind of time, take the ingredient list, take the spice list, take those spices and start playing with them inside your favorite pasta. Your favorite jar, store-bought pasta, it adds so much to it just to kick up the seasoning with those spices. Until next time, I'm Alkali. Behind the camera is...
I'm Zanny.
Thank you so much for joining us. Bon appetit.